Will Goldstein here, thekingscourt.com. That's my music site if you want to check it out. But anyway, and also subscribe down there in the right-hand corner. More people will come if you do. It's free, it's easy. One little click. Then you'll be notified when more videos come. So anyway, so the title of this video is, it's a follow-up on the other video I did with Spinoza on emotions. The title of this video is Spinoza on Understanding Natural Emotional Inclinations, subtitled The Psychology of the Emotions. So the first part he's talking about, and you can buy, it's from this book. I'm paraphrasing, I can't read it, but it's from this book or any other book. You can also get Spinoza, I'm sure, just PDF files, where you can read it that way, whatever. But anyway, so this is the association of the emotions. So I'm going to start here. So if the body and the mind together simultaneously are affected by two different emotions, whenever afterwards is affected by one of them, the other one will also be affected by the other. So there's an association, he's saying. So if something happened to you and it brought up two different emotions at the same time, or a couple things happened to you brought up two different emotions, when one of those comes up in the future, the other one could be present, or he says is present. So this is the whole idea of this video, is understanding emotions, so, and the natural inclinations that we have, because we can't hope in spirituality. First of all, we have to understand what the emotions are, then we have to understand them, what our natural inclinations are, and then in spirituality, we can take steps to deal with these emotions or control them. So this video is all about understanding our natural inclinations, okay? As opposed to spirituality. For instance, our natural inclination might be vengeance, but in spirituality, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Okay, so the fact that we contemplated a thing and we had an emotion such as joy or sorrow, this is sufficient reason for us to love or hate it. That's pretty obvious. So if something brings us joy, it brings us love. If something brings us sorrow, we hate it. Natural inclinations, okay? Anything can be the cause of either hope or fear. So things that are the causes of hope or fear are called, he calls them, good or evil omens. So insofar as these omens are that cause, then we either love them or hate them. Okay? So, next one, if we imagine something and it resembles an object, affects our mind with joy or sorrow, by virtue of the semblance alone, we love or hate it. So he's just connecting joy with love and sorrow with hate. That's what he's really doing. So next one, you can think about this, the next one, in terms of the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. But if we've been affected with joy or sorrow by any one person, but that person belongs to a nation or a class of people, okay, then, and it's different from our own, and we've identified our joy or sorrow is identified with that person who's caused this, then we associate the nation to which that person belongs to. For example, in Israeli-Palestinian conflict, people are bombing and killing other innocent people just because, let's say, I'm a Jew and you're an Arab, or I'm an Arab and you're a Jew, and therefore I don't know you and I don't care to know you, but just for the fact that you're an Arab, I'm going to kill you. That's the mentality that he's talking about. Okay, so it's just an association. Okay, so hating a class of people because of what some person did. All right, so if we imagine that a person enjoys something, that'll be a sufficient reason for to love the thing and to desire to enjoy it. Okay, that's basically all he's saying. So the nature of man is generally constituted as to have pity for those who are suffering adversity, but also in contrast, we envy those who are in prosperity. So he's associating those two. In other words, you're either looking down at somebody or you're looking up at somebody. Okay, and so he envies somebody with a hatred that he imagines that person has. So he wants to possess something that person has, and the degree to which he wants to possess what that person has is the degree to which he hates that person, is what he's saying. And since the idea of pitying someone below us, in the same way that we pity someone below us, we also envy somebody above us. So you could summarize that a person pities someone who doesn't have, and therefore, in the same way, he wants what others have. Got to read my scribbling. Okay, so we imagine that we are hated by another person, and we didn't give him any real cause for that hatred. We're going to hate him in return. We did nothing to make this person hate us, but this person hates us anyway, therefore I hate him in return. That's the natural inclination. Hatred is an attempt to bring evil upon someone who is hated. If we imagine that we are hated by anyone else, then we shall imagine him as the cause of our evil or sorrow. Someone hates me and I have evil or sorrow, must be him. Okay. And so we'll be affected with sorrow or apprehension. And it's accompanied with the idea of the person who hates us, and he's the cause of that. So we shall hate him in return. Okay. So if we imagine that an evil is brought upon us through the hatred of some person, and we didn't hitherto, he says, have any emotion towards that person, we will endeavor to return that evil upon him. So again, no cause for him hating me or doing this evil towards me. So I don't know why, but I'm going to hate him now anyway. Okay. Wow, the depravity of man here. This is natural, and this video is all about the depravity of man, really. So we imagine that anyone like ourselves is affected with hatreds towards an object that, which we love. We shall hate him. Okay? So again, if we imagine that anyone like ourselves is affected with hatred towards an object which we love, we shall hate him. We love the object, they are affected towards hatred towards this object that we love. Well, now we're going to hate them. Okay, you got to think fast doing this because everything is paraphrasing and I'm not using the same term, so I'm paraphrasing everything. So if I slow down, have mercy. It's not very easy to do this. So, but I'm putting in a lot less words. Let's just put it that way. So he's talking about reciprocal love, and that's really called thankfulness or gratitude. That's pretty obvious. So somebody loves us, we love them in return. Okay, or we're thankful and grateful for the love that, say, God has for us. But because that association is there, also we are even more ready to return vengeance upon those who hate us. Okay, in the same way that we love somebody who loves us, we even more, according to him, are ready to return vengeance on those who hate us. So this is about cruelty. So we imagine that we are, interesting the definition, the way that he describes cruelty. So personally, I think cruelty is one of the worst possible imaginable things that you can imagine. So if we imagine that we are loved by a person that we hate, okay, so if somebody hates somebody, but we imagine that person is understanding that that person that they hate loves them, that's what he's saying, okay, then the person will be agitated with both love and hate. In other words, I hate you, but you love me in return. Now I'm all confused in my mind. I really want to hate you, but now I'm kind of stuck in love, and that's what he's saying. So now if the hatred, so there's a war going on in the mind. So if the hatred prevails, then that person will endeavor to bring evil upon the person, even the person that loves him. So, like I just said, so if the hatred wins over above the love, then even though the person loves that person, he's still going to bring hatred upon that person and hate them. That's his definition of cruelty. Okay, so basically, it's being cruel towards someone who loves you. Okay, that's cruelty. And especially if it's believed that the person who loves has not given any ordinary reason for that hatred. So that's so in other words, they're doing extreme cruelty to someone who doesn't deserve it. Okay, this is cruelty. That's his definition. And I think anybody who's experienced cruelty, that's one of the things in any relationships that I have, if there's any kind of cruelty I try to have understanding and forgiveness for people, but once we enter into the domain of cruelty, outright cruelty, this undeserved, then that's my exit strategy. This relationship no longer exists. And if you have any wisdom, you do the same thing. So now he's talking about herd instinct. So if we imagine men or anyone to love or hate a thing, we shall love or hate it. So in other words, we're following the crowd, the herd instinct. Okay, so if somebody's rejoicing at something, then we rejoice. If they're sad, then we're sad. Okay, so it's just we're going to follow the crowd. What's the latest fad? That's what he's talking about. So you imagine when someone imagines that he affects others with joy or sorrow, so you're bringing joy into somebody's life, then you will necessarily feel joy. If you're affecting someone else with sorrow, then you're going to feel sorrow. So there's an association there. We imagine a person loves, desires, or hates a thing which we love or desire or hate. On that account, okay, we will love, desire, or hate the thing even more. Again, it's the herd instinct. This whole little chapter, this part is the herd instinct. So everyone endeavors as much as possible to make others, people, love the same things that we love and to hate what we hate. In other words, I'm this way, you should all be this way. I think it's this way, and so should you. I hate it, you should hate it. I love it, you should hate it. That's what he's saying. So, and there's an effort to make everyone approve of what we love or hate, and he calls this ambition. But he follows this to an interesting conclusion. So, so we can see that each person, by nature, desires that other people should live according to his way of thinking. Okay, this is the way. I'm this way. Everybody should be this way. I think this. You should think it. But, and this is a big word here. But, if everyone does this, then all are hindrance to each other. So if everybody's thinking that way, then we're all in enmity with one another. And everyone wishes to be praised by everyone else, okay? Then what ends up happening is they all hate one another. Because you're not like me, so I hate you. This is what ends up happening in this kind of thinking. Okay? So, joy and sorrow and the emotions that are derived from them, he calls these passions. So, let's see here. On to a different part here. This part is called, he calls the inconstancy of the emotions. So in other words, the emotions are fluctuating. Okay? So if the human body is affected by some other external body, and it can be affected in a number of ways. So, so because it's affected in a number of ways, this way or in that way, well, that's what he's saying. It can be affected in a number of ways. There's nothing much more that he's really saying there. Okay, so, sorry, that's a little confusing. So, again, it's hard to do this. So it's possible for a person to love a thing and another person to hate it. Okay, I love it, you hate it. And for this person to have fear, and one person to have fear and another man doesn't have fear. One person to love and another person doesn't love, he hates it. A person to, or I mean, even the same person, he can change. So he loved it and then he hates it. Now he dares to do what he feared before. So it's talking about the changing of emotions that we can have. So they're not constant, is what he's saying. You can have an emotion towards something, but then you can have the opposite emotion. You can be fearful of doing something and somehow come up with the courage to do it. Okay, you can love something, hate something, and now all of a sudden, for some reason, you have a change of attitude and love it. So this is the irrationality of the emotions, basically, is what he's getting here at. So, since the judges, according to his own emotion, what is good and what is evil, and what's better and what's worse, they also change their judgment in relation to the emotion. So he's changing his, like I said, a change of status, in relation to the emotion. So, he's saying basically that the nature of man is an inconstancy in his judgment. It's not always the same. It's just a conflict, and we're changing our minds and we're changing the way that we feel about things. So he often judges things, and he's judging them by mere emotions, and that these emotions are contributing to his joy or sorrow. But what he's saying is they're only imaginary. They're not real. This is why people say follow your reason and the judgments that you make instead of making decisions based on your emotions, because your emotions are fluctuating. Okay? And so you can't get make any wise decisions if they're all based on how I feel, because it's how I feel today, and how you feel tomorrow might be different. It's only imaginary. And you can see that a man often may be the cause of his own joy or sorrow because of this, making decisions totally based on emotion instead of based on reason. Spinoza is, if you read this whole book, and Spinoza is all about reason. Okay? Reason wins the day. And reason is in connection with spirituality, because think about it. Spirituality, by its very nature, has to be associated with reason and logic. It can't be anything else, right? So, in the way that you think is going to, and in terms of reason and logic, is going to determine the outcome of your spirituality. So, if we imagine an object and it's causing joy or sorrow, we imagine that object is, and we imagine that object or that joy or sorrow is necessary, then our love or hatred towards it will be less. In other words, if something brings us sorrow, but after thinking about it for a while, we realize that really needed to happen. Okay, even though it brought me sorrow, my hatred for it is going to be less because I have understanding of why. So in other words, your husband or your wife says something to you and it's the truth, and momentarily you hate your husband or wife because of what they said to you, but then you go into your room and you start thinking about it and you really realize that you really deserve that, then it's going to be less, is what he's saying. So we imagine that the person we hate is affected with hatred towards us, okay, then we have a new hatred. So now I hate this person, and now I know they hate me. Well, then now I've got even a more new hatred that's produced. And if we imagine the love towards us, and we look upon ourselves with joy, if we imagine that person has love towards us, and we endeavor to please that person. So, insofar as we endeavor not to hate him, nor to affect him with sorrow. All right. So hatred is increased. What he's getting at is hatred is increased through hatred, and love would be increased through love, but hatred may also be destroyed by love. So, in other words, his view is that at the end of the day, which is that's what Jesus is all about, love your enemies. Hatred is destroyed by love. So, hatred, which altogether overcome by love, passes into love. So hatred could be overcome and pass into love if somebody loves you even though you hate them. That can change your way of thinking. And therefore, because of that, love is the greater. And it's even greater if hatred than if hatred had not preceded it. Okay? So we begin to love a thing which we hated. We were in the habit of looking with sorrow. And we shall rejoice for the very reason that we love, and to this joy we, which love ourselves involves, a new joy is added. Anyway, okay, so I'm wrapping it up here. Sorry, again, it's hard to paraphrase it. Hope you understand that. So here I'd like to end with a quote on man's well-being, and this is the words of Spinoza. All happiness or unhappiness solely depends upon the quality of the object to which we are attached by love. Love for an object eternal and infinite feeds the mind with joy alone, a joy that is free from all sorrow. So he's talking about the love of God. So this is the big thing in my thinking. When I read that, I think, well, this is exactly the way I think. Look, the nature of love is, what he's saying is, notice the word, I stopped on the word quality. Okay? So, if love is associated with love, in other words, if you have a marriage and you have a very loving person in that marriage, and the other person, you got a lot of problems with love, and they're trying to enter into a relationship, well, the degree and the quality of that relationship is determined by the factors that go between those two entities. Okay? So if one's very loving and one's not very loving, there's going to be some definitely significant problems in that. It's hard to imagine how two evil people can love one another, because they're both evil. But I suppose they love each other in their own evilness and their own wickedness and their own whatever hedonism that they're into. But the degree of it's all based on quality. So what he's saying is the ultimate love is love for God because of the quality of God. So God is good, God is love. Therefore, if you want to receive, like he starts out with, the ultimate happiness, okay, is going to be loving God, because God is all loving and all good and love itself. Therefore, the relationship there is going to be the strongest. Whereas if you enter into a relationship with someone else and that you, quote unquote, feel love towards, then if that person is very spiteful, revengeful, cruel, or whatever, the degree of that love and happiness that you're going to have in that relationship is going to descend into the abyss, and probably best to, well, it's difficult if you're married, then you're talking about divorce. So I'm not advocating divorce, but it's a very difficult relationship that people have to endure sometimes because they're in a relationship with someone who's really not very loving and can be very cruel and spiteful. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. And please subscribe again, Will Goldstein from thekingscourt.com. Check out my music if you like. Loads of books, loads of free music to download if you go to thekingscourt.com and follow the links, or you can listen to music, purchase the music, you can stream the music in multiple places. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see what happens with further videos, perhaps on emotion. With Spinoza, I'll look into it. Have a blessed day.